Hey guys, Edgar here. Guns for everyone. The gentleman below me, his name is.
Isaac Chase, below you.
We should start doing
It's a
the.
great way to start off the
Yeah,
video.
just like if you guys didn't catch that reference, go search for
Rex Navarrete.
Rex. Oh yeah, that's his name.
Yeah.
Rex Navarrete. He does a comedy thing. He talks about the above jobs, and then some other stuff. Really good stuff. This video is unfortunately an update video that we are doing for in upcoming laws. There's changes that are coming in to Colorado in 2024. So we're doing that video, the update. We're going to try and include as much as we possibly can in here without overwhelming you guys. If you're watching this not as part of a class, you're still going to learn. So please check it out, add your comments, share the video. You don't have to take the class to know this stuff. This is still valuable information. If you're taking this, or if you're watching this video, I'm sorry, as part of the class, several things. One, you don't have to watch it, right? Like you can just, it's better if you see me though, like duh. But you can just listen to it, right? That a lot of people are like, I couldn't watch it. Like, you just listen to it while you're driving. Some students have said that if you speed it up a little bit, if you're on a time crunch, that also helps. Please do note that if you're showing up to a class, I, Edgar, use a lot of bad words. I'm probably going to do it a lot in this video. I'm going to do it a lot more in class. If you're hypersensitive about that stuff, you're probably not the students for us to begin with. So keep that in mind.
A couple other things to keep in mind. Number one, this is not an actual part of our concealed carry class. By law, this cannot be part of the required training time. Although this is the best way for you guys to get this information, supplemented by coming in and asking questions in the class and engaging with it that way. But part of the benefit of the video is that you will be able to come back and watch portions of the video or the entire video more than one time, which you should. Edgar and I have been doing this for a very long time, and both of us continually revisit the laws to make sure we're right and also to make it easier for us to remember this stuff when it's important. The other thing about this video is you don't need to watch the whole thing before the class, but it's better if you do. And you'll have better questions in the class if you do. And also, if you have any questions after watching this video, you should write them down and bring them with you to the class so that you can ask those questions in the class. Also, you can leave questions in the comments, and we will try to answer those questions if you put them in the comments.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching the video and being prepared for the class just makes everything go by a lot smoother inside of the class. It just saves everybody time. Not that it's a super waste of time, but it does completely help. So yeah, absolutely. We want to start off by talking about one of the laws that is going to change. And I should talk about it as if it already did. This bill right here comes into effect July 1st of this year. So this one is coming into effect July 1st of this year. And this is the quote unquote sensitive spaces bill. This is going to change where or add restrictions on where you cannot carry, restrictions on where you cannot carry. It's pretty simple, but again, this is in addition to what already exists. So this isn't the limit. One of the biggest changes is carrying into the government buildings. Beforehand, you were able to carry in municipal stuff, all that stuff. This changes it. This is now basically saying you can now no longer carry into government facilities. Meeting of a local government governing body is being conducted, that type of stuff. The official office of elected members of local governments, governing body. So city halls, think about it that way. The General Assembly, we've always known that, but July 1st, you can no longer go into city halls, town halls with your gun. That you can't do that anymore. Courthouses, a lot of this stuff you guys already thought you couldn't do. So for a lot of you guys, this is not going to change because you thought this was the thing. But no, actually in Colorado, this is actually a big change. You used to be able to carry into courthouses, that type of stuff, if they didn't have metal detectors. Now, with or without metal detectors, you cannot carry your firearm. There's always exceptions, and like always, the exceptions are for um, people with those special privileges, right? The upper class in society, the specially protected humans,
The people with more rights.
the people with more rights than you and I as peasants. So that includes peace officers, members of the United States Armed Forces, Colorado National Guard, when engaged in lawful discharge of members' official duties. That's going to spark a lot of conspiracy theories right there. Security personnel, law enforcement personnel, a person who holds a valid permit to carry concealed handgun or a temporary emergency permit issued pursuant who is carrying a concealed handgun in the adjacent parking area of a location listed in subject 1 of this section. So parking lots are still going to be okay for local government stuff, state government stuff. I'm sure we'll get into the federal stuff a little bit later, but yeah.
So one thing to just kind of note about this, prior to the law change, a public building with metal detector and security guard permanently in place at every public entrance. So for instance, a courthouse with those things, that was the reason you could not carry into that building, was because those existed. Now there are additional places where they don't need to have the metal detector and security guard in order to prohibit concealed carry or open carry in those buildings.
Correct. Continuing with our loss of preemption back in 2021, this section does not prohibit local government from enacting an ordinance, regulation, or other law pursuant to this section that prohibits a person from carrying a firearm in specified places. So local governments, this is kind of, again, doubling down that local governments can make up their own laws. This is why it's difficult for us to even talk about in classes where you can and can't carry anymore, because the real answer is, I don't know. I may know right now, but I don't know what Lakewood's going to change tomorrow. I don't know what Boulder's going to change on Thursday. So really, if you really want to know where you can and cannot carry, there is a website. I'll put it up here. Let's see if hopefully nothing else pops up. Library.municode.com. Library.municode.com. And it's really that simple. If you ever have a question for us, it's as simple as going to these websites and then asking the official source. This is the official source for many cities and counties in the state of Colorado. Not all of them, but a great majority. If you can't find them here, you can go straight to their website and go under their usually town hall or city code and use the search bar and type in whatever it is you want to look up. And it's really, really quite easy. If you go to Arvada, just as an example, I know how do you do this, but we've been doing this a long time, and we know that some of you guys want us to hold your hand the entire way. Open carry, right? That's one thing that gets asked about a lot. So in Arvada, open carry is prohibited under certain circumstances. So that's how you would use this stuff. So if you ever have a question, you can just go use this resource. This is, again, library.municode.com, and then select your corresponding city. It's a good way of doing that.
I want to add a side note to that. Colorado law does still provide provide preemption for carrying in your car. So if you're driving through Arvada, you don't need to check on this as you're driving through Arvada. If you're driving through Denver, you don't need to go to library.municode to find out where you're going to get in trouble for going through the city of Denver with, whatever you've got. State law does still have preemption for driving in your car or your personal private means of conveyance, which includes traveling through jurisdictions that would otherwise prohibit those specific items or methods of carry, including no matter how many stops within that jurisdiction. So you can stop at the gas station,
Correct.
you can make your stops along the way. So you do have the right to travel through these jurisdictions.
Yeah, so that's 1812-105.6. That's going to be in the lexusnexus.com/hot topics/Colorado. That's the official source in the state of Colorado. So that's this section right here, which limits local ordinances in private vehicles. So you could do that, all that stuff, because it's a matter of consistency, right? So that's going to be, again, 1812.
I found some hate language in there.
105.6. Did you?
Yeah.
Oh, he
or
yeah.
she, no, they.
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
Wonder if we could file a lawsuit on that.
Lawsuits. We have a lot of our friends and family that would have a lot to say about that.
Yes.
We should get them along on that lawsuit. So the link is down there, lexusnexus.com/hot topics/Colorado.
Okay, so to summarize, the changes to carrying is prohibited in some new places. It's government buildings that are part of the governing body, including the offices of government officials. You can't carry in those places anymore, but you can have the gun in the parking lot.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then the other place is schools now. That's a big change in the state of Colorado, because now it's essentially universities, colleges, that type of stuff. So this is being added. A person shall not knowingly carry a firearm either openly or concealed in or on the real estate and all improvements erected thereon of a licensed child care center, public or private elementary, middle, junior high, or high school, or vocational school, or any public or private college, university, or seminary, except for the purposes of presenting an authorized public demonstration or exhibition pursuant to instruction in conjunction with the organized school or class for the purpose of carrying out the necessary duties functions of an employee or an educational institution that requires the use of a firearm, or for the purpose of participating in authorized extracurricular activity on or on an athletic team. So that's a big change, right? Because now it's specific to private schools. The private schools used to be dealt with differently. Colleges, universities. This is a drastic change here in the state of Colorado. So that's one thing to know. On the real property or into an improvement erected on a public elementary. Oh, is not an offense under this section. Again, there's always exceptions. If you're on the real property of they're together type stuff, erected thereon of a public elementary or high school in accordance with the authority granted pursuant to the section, a parking lot area of a licensed child care or public or private college, university, or seminary. The added one is the weapon involved. Firearm is carrying a firearm employed or retained by security personnel. So your typical exceptions for police and security. The one that is interesting that they even thought about this is if the daycare or the childcare facility that they're calling, or the private school or whatever, shares a building with another. If the building, if the area is not controlled by the school, I'm just going to use that as a blanket statement, then you're good. Right.
Yeah, for instance, in Colorado Springs, there is a charter school within one of the shopping malls, and the shopping mall has a sign saying you can't carry there, but that's not a lawful prohibition of carry. So it is lawful to carry at the shopping mall with a valid concealed carry permit, and you would not be subject to this particular violation just because there is a school within the mall.
Correct.
But you couldn't go into the school
Correct.
within the mall
Correct.
with the firearm.
So that's kind of the big changes for that section. Again, a lot of this stuff you're going to be able to find at some point at the LexisNexis, or you can look up the bill itself. This one, the prohibited carrying firearms in sensitive spaces, it's SB 24-131. If you Google that, you'll be able to come up with the text and view the text bill. So you can read it yourself. It's confusing. Usually it's better to just wait until it's in the LexisNexis. But this is, for us, it's the same shit.
So polling places is included in this?
That's always been a thing. They added some clarifications in it, but that's always been a thing in terms of polling places not being able to carry like within 100 feet and stuff like that. Let me see if I can find it. I had it here earlier. I'm just gonna have you talk while I F3 this bitch.
Okay. Yeah. So the going back to him talking to Edgar talking about how to find this stuff. When you open a bill like this, you have to recognize that the crossed through areas are places where it previously said that in the law, but is being changed. So that's why you're seeing that in there.
So yeah, this was already in the revised statutes. They're just clarifying a few things. So section 4 is amending these sections right here as follows.
Yeah, because it was open carry and now it's any carry.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Those are the changes. Openly carried now is just firearms in or near polling locations. Regulating open carry now is just firearms. So these are the big changes to that. So when you go vote for your preferred villain,
tyrant,
whoever your favorite bad guy is, you can no longer take your concealed handgun with you. The exception is,
if you vote for
weird. The exception is he wouldn't agree with you on that, but he would actually be against it. The exception is if you live around that area, but it's 100 feet, so I don't know that anybody would live that close to. Is it 100 feet or is it 100 yards? I thought it was 100 feet.
It includes drop boxes.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah. So
yeah, for sure, that makes more sense. So I have nothing more on this one.
That's good for now.
Yep. We'll talk a little bit more about where you can and cannot carry a little bit later. This is the changes. Another big change that's coming to the state of Colorado, and again, we might as well talk about it as if it is the thing. If you're watching the video, it more likely already is a thing. We're making this video June 13th, 2024. So we're anticipating these changes. Some of you guys are attending the class before that, and you need to know that this is changing as well. So the big change for training requirements, the training requirements are changing in the state of Colorado. Right now, or what the law was before, is you show up to a class. There is no time requirement. There is no test. There is no shooting required. You just show up to a class with a certified instructor, and that's about it. The only real specific verbiage was firearms safety course or class, the safety part of it. Other than that, it was whatever handgun class you took would qualify you to obtain your concealed handgun permit. That's changing. The big thing that's changing is, and by the way, this is confusing if you go search it online. When it comes into effect is very confusing. They said July 1st, 2025, and if you were to believe politicians, which you should never do that. I don't care which side you're on, you should never do that. you might think that this is not a thing until July 1st, 2025. But if you read Section 9 of the bill, it actually says sections 1, 4, 6, and 7 of this act take effect July 1st, 2025. Well, that's cool. But the rest of it takes effect 12:01 a.m. On the following day of the expiration of the 90-day period after final adjournment, which is August 7th. This is August 7th. You can look this stuff up if you guys want, and it'll explain to you what it all means, but it's August 7th at this point. Section 2, 3, and 5. Well, Section 2 essentially adds 1812-202.5 to the definitions. And this is what a handgun training class and a refresher class are now, what the rules are now. So a concealed handgun training class is now going to require 8 hours worth of training. So it's going to be 8 hours. It could be split up into multiple days. It doesn't have to be all done in the same day. The class itself has 2 tests. It has a shooting test and it has a written test, both presumably objective tests instead of subjective tests. The written, I don't know that you could do a subjective written test, but the shooting is essentially going to be the same for everyone. 50 rounds is what the minimum is. There's no maximum, obviously, but there is a minimum of 50 rounds. So the concealed handgun training class must include the following: instruction regarding knowledge and safety safe handling of firearms and ammunition. How do you safely handle ammunition?
Don't throw it in a burn barrel. I guess.
Safe hand. I want to know what they mean by this stuff. That's the problem with this stuff is they don't even know what they mean.
They don't know what they mean. Yeah.
Instruction regarding safe storage of firearms and child safety. Instruction regarding safe firearm shooting fundamentals.
Whatever that means.
Correct. Yeah. And those who have been around guns for a very long time know exactly what this all is. This is all BS. Instruction regarding federal and state laws pertaining to the lawful purchase, ownership, transportation, use, and possession of a firearm, including instruction on extreme risk protection orders, requirements for reporting lost or stolen firearms described in Section 1812-113, secured firearm storage, requirements described in that section, and any other state law enacted within 5 years before the class that pertains to the purchase, ownership, transportation, use, and possession of firearms. Instruction regarding the laws pertaining to the use of deadly force and self-defense. Instruction regarding the best practices to ensure concealed handgun permit holders safely interact with law enforcement personnel who are responding to an emergency. What emergency? Like a car wreck? Like a hurricane in Colorado? Like it's just earthquake? Instruction regarding techniques for avoiding a criminal attack, on how to manage a violent confrontation, including conflict resolution and judgmental use of lethal force. A requirement that students achieve a minimum of 70%. This is what I was talking about earlier, 70% for the live fire and then 80% for the written test. Also with this is every 5 years, a renewal now requires a refresher course. So that refresher class has the same testing requirements. You have to pass the written test 80%, 70% for the live fire. So it still has those 2 components, but this is a 2-hour class, a refresher class, instead of the 8-hour class. Presumably, you just show up to do the test, make sure you still know the stuff, and then shoot, right? Because in 2 hours, that's about all you can do is take the exam. That's kind of the big things about the change. There's changes that apply to us as instructors that you may want to know, like verification of instructors. If you guys are interested in becoming instructors, I encourage you guys to go to gfenational.com. Go here, become an instructor here. But if you guys are ever concerned about us I know this is kind of biased because like we run this organization, but you can verify instructors there. Your local sheriff's office can verify instructors here. It's very easy. All they need to know is the instructor's name and the instructor number, and then they can verify it. We do have a directory as well, but this is a lot easier to do it that way. The instructors will have to be verified by the sheriff where they operate under. That's kind of a protection for you guys to a certain degree. You should always vet your instructors. The government should be part of it. But Guns for Everyone is a national nonprofit organization that certifies firearms instructors. We are an alternative to the NRA and other organizations that are more interested in member number instead of actually quality training. Has nothing to do with the bill, but we kind of laid out what the bill is. I can't stress this enough. This is not training. What the government is asking everybody to do is not training. Our seminars are not training. The 4 hours that you show up to and sit in a seat is not training. We would never compare this to real life training, right? We're teaching humans how to defend themselves when de-escalation didn't work. That's not the time to be talking about de-escalation, but this is what the government's requiring you to do when you show up to the class is taking biased tests. This is all biased, right? It's whatever one human decided they want you to know without knowing what self-defense entails, the neuroscience, the science and physics behind the guns, and actual shit that you should know about self-defense. I got to stress that as an instructor, this sounds cool until you really put it into practice, and then you realize this is not self-defense. These are all subjects that are important to know, but are not part of self-defense in any way, shape, or form. When you're carrying concealed, you need to be thinking about self-defense, not how you should be storing your gun. When you're home with your kids, you should be thinking about how should I store my gun, because that's the appropriate time to think about it. But when you are needing to defend yourself, that's not what the fuck you're thinking about.
This bill is essentially a catch-all to try to develop standards that will be used to exclude people from being able to carry a gun. This is going to drive up the cost of concealed carry training. That therefore means it's going to drive up the cost to you as the person who is trying to get your concealed carry permit, and so that will exclude more people from being able to do that. A lot of flowery language in here, all meant to increase the amount of effort and time it takes for you to exercise what should be a right to you. So that is the real purpose behind the bill.
Yeah. And one thing that we should know, and I know this is not primarily what this video is about, but the National Education Association, which is the largest union for teachers, even they themselves have understood that standardized testings don't accurately measure students' learning and growth. Instead of performance-based assessment, it doesn't really show you what the fuck they're learning. Performance-based assessment is equitable, right? So like anybody can take the stuff. I know that that's language that for a lot of people we don't like to hear, but it's true, right? Like this is one of the things that we argue all the time is just standardized testing is not the way to go. It's very objective, and you're testing everybody the same. Granny, who is 60 years old, you might be the granny who's 60 years old, 70 years old. You have arthritis. How are you gonna perform the exact same way as the 23-year-old that's next to you? That's insane, right? Like this is why standardized testings doesn't work in any way, shape, or form. Do the research yourself and understand that what the government's asking you to do, one, is not freedom, and then two, is not actually self-defense training. It's still not training. So rant over. We need to figure out when that rant is, so like we can put rant.
And, rant. Yeah.
Begin rant.
In addition to that, while we despise this government mandated definition of training, we do strongly encourage you to continue your training and education on your own. And that's the only way real learning actually happens, is when it's your idea and when it's your motivation, not when somebody else is telling you to do it. So if you're really not interested in carrying a gun, then I don't even know why you're watching this video. If you are interested in carrying a gun, then you should be taking on the responsibility to continue
Correct.
your education and training.
Yeah.
And we have lots of ways to help you do that, and we're not the only ones who can do that
Yeah.
with you.
And I'll add this to that, right? If you're watching this video because the government's forcing you to do the game and do all that shit, come in with a good attitude, right? You have to show up anyways to get the little piece of plastic. That's silly. You're asking for permission to defend yourself. It's dumb. Like I'm with you on that, but like don't show up to the class with a bad attitude and all sad and puffy and shit like that. We're there. Imagine if I showed up to the class and like, fuck, I have to teach you guys this stuff. So yeah, we could be mad about it. We could be upset about it, but I owe it to you guys to be my best and teach and give you the best information with their added bullshit. And I'll tell you in class, hey, this is not self defense, and this is self defense. I'll tell you when it's like that. But at the same time, it's kind of shitty when you pollute the entire class because you're a shitty student. You still got to be a good student. I encourage you guys to still be a good student when you show up to class. Don't be a fucking weirdo in class, ruining it for everybody else. We all got problems. You're not special. Was that not the that wasn't the speech?
That was a good speech.
All right. Let's move it along. Which section do you want to talk about first?
All right, so let's talk about how who qualifies for a permit and what can exclude you from getting a permit.
Got it. So let's start off in 1812-203, criteria for obtaining a concealed handgun. And again, I'm going to put that back up here just for those of you guys that missed it. That's lexisnexis.com/hot topics/Colorado. This is the criteria to obtain your concealed handgun permit. Pretty standard stuff, right? You have to be a resident of the state of Colorado. 90 days is usually what we talk about. I don't know of any sheriff's office that sits there and actually counts it. In fact, I know a lot of humans who just moved, and because they did everything that they were supposed to, they actually got their permit before that stuff. So I don't really think any sheriff is actually counting that. Right? We can be objective about that type of stuff. Have to be 21 years of age. Is not ineligible to possess a firearm. Has not been convicted of perjury under the Section 18A. So that stuff does not chronically and habitually use alcoholic beverages. It talks about habitually, right? This is if you've been caught more than anything else. One added thing that is in this section, it's in we had it earlier and now I forgot where it was.
Are you talking about the new exclusion?
Section 3, right? Yeah, part 3, section 3. Nope, that's for us. Yeah, the exclusion was a 5.
Yeah, the new.
Oh no, here it is.
Yeah.
Section 4. Sorry, section 4. Which, by the way, this section 4 doesn't come into effect until July 1st, 2025. But you might as well, because it is a law, you might as well start getting that into your system. The one thing that's going to change in the criteria is that you have not been convicted of any of the other offenses described in there. Do you have them up?
Yeah, I'll just list them off. This is if you read the statute that Edgar's got in front of you, there's the reference point. I'm going to read these off. Misdemeanor, assault in the 3rd degree. Misdemeanor, assault, sexual assault. Misdemeanor, unlawful sexual contact. Misdemeanor, child abuse. Violation of protection order. Misdemeanor, crime against an at-risk person. Misdemeanor, harassment as defined in 18.9, 111, 1A. A bias-motivated crime, which is Colorado's hate crime law. Misdemeanor, cruelty to animals as described with the reference there, including misdemeanor possession of an illegal weapon, which could include having a firearm, a concealed firearm, in a place where it is not allowed. Unlawfully providing a firearm other than a handgun to a juvenile. Unlawfully providing a handgun is without the permission of that juvenile's guardians or parents, or otherwise giving them access to a firearm when they're not supposed to have access to a firearm. And then unlawful conduct involving an unserialized firearm frame or receiver. Colorado law prohibits ghost guns. Any unserialized firearm under Colorado law, including a non-finished unserialized firearm, is not allowed in the state of Colorado.
Nice. So those are the ones that are going to be added to. So if you don't see them here, it's because they're actually in this section right here. Not unlawful user of alcohol or controlled substances. If you are a pothead, medical potheads are the ones that are really affected by this, because you guys get cross-referenced with the CBI. In order for you to get your medical pothead card, you have to go through the CBI. And in order to get your permit, you have to go through the CBI. I know a lot of you guys will kind of scream HIPAA, but they're not looking at why you got the card. They're just looking at whether or not you have the card. That's very different than looking at why you got the card. So if you got your medical pothead card, then it is very unlikely that you'll be able to get your concealed handgun permit. Again, there's some sheriffs out there that we don't give a shit, freedom, and they'll still give it to you. That's them being more lenient than the law requires them to be, but the law does not allow that. If you are a recreational pothead, this still applies to you, but it's really on whether or not you're going to tell on yourself or not. So we're not telling you what to do, what not to do. It's just the only way they are going to know is what you tell them. Now, obviously, if you're part of those fucking dumb potheads that show up smelling like weed everywhere you fucking go, then ta-da, motherfucker, there's the cue that you smoke weed. But not necessarily. Some of you guys work in the industry and you don't consume, which is weird. Those of you that work in the industry, you're fine, right? It's the consumption of this. Doesn't say anything about you work in the industry. It's all about unlawful users or addicted to controlled substances, or a habitual offender of alcohol stuff and stuff like that. Not if you work in the industry. The other stuff is you don't have a protection order against you. Any of them, including the extreme risk protection order, or the red flag, as people call them. And then you have to take the class. Remember, this is June 13th, 2024. So they hasn't updated into the CRS and LexisNexis. Remember, we're following the new ones. So we can, we already told you what the class is: 8 hours for a new applicant, 2 hours for a refresher course, and pass those 2 tests. But you could also, this is going to stay, firearms through participation in organized shooting competitions or current military stuff. That really hasn't changed in the criteria. That's still a thing. Evidence of experience with a firearm through participation in organized shooting competitions, current military service, or current certification as a peace officer pursuant to go for it.
So I'm going to go ahead and just give you the cheat code for this. Go participate in an IDPA match, get a scorecard with your name on it, and present that as proof of experience with firearms organized shooting competitions.
Yeah, well, actually, one of the things that you and I haven't talked about, because this is one of the things that we're doing. So competitions is something that Guns for Everyone National already does. We do the Gunmakers match, and then we do the Front Ranges Rumble, which we'll add more to that. But part of the competition we're going to do is a concealed carry competition, where it's a smaller event. But we would be qualifying you based off of concealed carry tactics, concealed carry moves. So that's what you would be qualified under is that, and then you'd get scored based off of that. We wouldn't worry about time or anything like that, because in self-defense, time is one of those
not
things.
Measurable.
It's really unmeasurable, yeah, for sure, in a self-defense environment, right? Because you don't know how many shots it's going to be. You don't know distance, how many bad guys, how few bad guys. So we will have a competition that will start off that it's based off of just concealed carry and self-defense that you guys will be able to participate in as well. So look for that in the near future.
Before that happens, or if you're interested in doing this outside of participating with us, there are ranges, including Pikes Peak Gun Club, that conduct monthly organized shooting events. And so if you do some research on that and go participate, then you don't need this class. We still encourage you to come to this class. But if you are exercising your rights within the law, that's one of them.
Yeah, for sure. Again, it's games and self-defense are not the same thing. One of the things I hate the most is when people are like, well, I was in the thing, and because I did the thing, I know about guns. I'm like, it's a lie. I can prove it at the range. So regardless whether the applicant meets the criteria, the sheriff's office still has some discretion, but that discretion is based solely off of your criminal history. So it's not whether or not you own a business, don't own a business. It's not that discretion. They don't have that much discretion. The discretion is still merely on whether or not there's a criminal history that they need to look at. And if you look at here in this section, that's all they changed. They didn't change the discretion for the sheriff's office. So again, it's the sheriff shall deny, revoke, or refuse to renew a permit if an applicant or permittee fails to meet one of the criteria listed above the section, and may deny, revoke grounds specified in the section. So though that is only in the section, it's not because they want to. Again, the discretion is reasonable belief that documented previous behavior by the applicant makes it likely that the applicant will present danger to self or others. If the applicant receives a permit to carry a concealed handgun, the sheriff may deny the permit. So it's based off of documented previous behavior, not on a whim and not just because they want to. Any section that you want me to jump to, or
just want to mention that if you are denied for a permit, there is a appeals process. We don't need to go into great detail on it. Just know that it does exist. And if you get denied, this is the section you're going to go to, 1812-206.
yeah, they legally have 90 days. And notice that it says days. It doesn't say calendar days. It's 90 days that they have for that. So it's 90 calendar days. I'm sorry, not 990 business days. It doesn't specify that. When they want to say business days, it'll be very clear. One clear example on this, just to give you a quick little example, is in maintenance of permits. It actually says within 30 days after the permittee specified, and then it says within 3 business days. So there's a distinct difference between 30 days and business days. So please understand that. They have 90 calendar days to issue that permit. If you get denied, there is an appeals process here. And then 1812-207 is the judicial review. If they deny you the second time in the appeal, you have the ability to go through a judicial review, or you can bypass the second review by the sheriff and go straight for the judicial review.
All right. So, how about restrictions on carrying? Places where you are not permitted or there are restrictions.
Yeah, 1812-214. And we're trying to make this video to the high level stuff where we're trying to avoid all of the tiny stuff that you should look at your own, like that entire section of 1812 part 2. We just kind of want to hit the super high notes. Yeah. So in the state of Colorado, this permit doesn't, this is what this is talking about, doesn't give you any special powers, privileges, any of that stuff. It doesn't really authorize you to do much.
You're not a cop because you have a permit.
Correct. This is a confusing thing that they added here. They can disarm you, but they have to give you the gun back. Understand that you are not under obligation to notify at all. the officer. If you go to lexisnexis.com/hot topic/Colorado, and if we go to section 16, and if we go to 16.3, 16.3, and then 103, 16.3, 103. This is when you get contacted by a police officer. Nothing in here says that you must tell the cops anything. In fact, in here it says that you're required to give him. Oh, there goes that fucking non-inclusive shit again. And it's only for men, apparently. Ladies, you guys are golden here. It gives his name and address, identification if available, and an explanation of his actions. So a peace officer shall not require any person who will stop pursuant to this section to divulge such person's social security number. The stopping shall not constitute an arrest. And then down below, you can read the annotations. Like nothing in here requires you to say more than that. You don't have to tell them about your gun. But if you do decide to tell them, this is where that comes into place. So they can temporarily disarm you, or they see the gun, right? Some of you guys are weird and you want to leave your gun fucking floating around, weirdos. Some of you guys are also weird and you want to put the magnet thing. That's weird. But if you want to do that, they see your gun, then they can do that stuff. This right here is basically the section that says that a local government can add restrictions to their specific buildings and areas. They can restrict that stuff. If a local government board prohibits carrying concealed handguns in a building specific area, the local government of the board shall post signs. So they're required to post signs. The notice required by the section may be included on a sign describing open carry restriction posted in accordance with 2911.7. So that's the signage thing has always been an issue. One interesting thing is that if you get caught for the first offense, it should be no more than $50.
It's a civil, not a criminal.
It's a civil thing, and you cannot get jail time for this. So your very first offense, if you go into a building, say Denver has an ordinance where you can't carry into parks. You are in a Denver park and you get caught carrying your firearm. The very first offense, if you get caught, may not exceed $50 and no jail time. $50 and no jail time. Does not authorize you to carry a handgun into places where the carrying of firearm is prohibited by federal law. The exception there is national forests, national parks. The homie Obama back in 2009, right? 2009.
Yeah.
Signed it, came into effect 2010. February 20th, right? If I'm not mistaken.
I'm not going to question you on that.
February 20th of 2010 is when it came into effect. National forests, national parks, BLM land, that type of stuff. You can carry your firearm there. Go for it.
There are places where federal law strictly prohibits possession of firearms. There are places where it is allowed with specific permission. So federal property does not have a universal law about carrying guns. You need to familiarize yourself with the federal laws for the places you're going. You can't take a firearm onto a military base without prior approval from the base commander. Your concealed carry permit is not prior approval. You can't take a gun into a post office or onto postal property. Now there is a pending court case about that, but it's not. It doesn't relate to you yet. So no firearms on postal property, period, including in the parking lot. And those are just two examples. You have federal property that occupies retail space. Sometimes you have federal property that has its own space, like the Federal Center out in Lakewood. So you need to be aware and you need to think ahead when you're headed onto federal property.
Yeah. So this is I want to make sure that
you were off by 2 days.
2 days?
February
22nd. See, this is a lot closer than all you motherfuckers would have been.
That is
As-
100% true.
So yeah, this came into effect under the Obama administration, saying that you can now legally possess, but you do have to follow state law. That's one of the things that firearms under applicable federal, state, and local laws. So Rocky Mountain National Park is under Colorado state jurisdiction, even though it's a federal thing. You still have to follow Colorado state laws. So that's what I was talking about with those exceptions. So this is national forest, national parks, BLM land, that type of stuff. This is carrying. We're not talking about using your firearm. We're talking about carrying your firearms. Does not 2.5 does not authorize a person to carry a handgun into a place where the carrying of concealed handguns is prohibited. Redundant there. A permittee issued to this permit does not authorize a permit to carry into middle, junior high, high school. Again, redundant because we already talked about that earlier. You may have a handgun on the real property of the public school so long as the handgun remains in your vehicle. And if you're not in the vehicle, the handgun is in the possession of a person. The handgun, is in a compartment within the vehicle and the vehicle is locked. I was conflating with carrying in your vehicle. So you may have it, has to stay in the vehicle, locked up in a compartment. New storage law in the state of Colorado that we might as well talk about just very briefly. If the vehicle is unattended, the gun now has to be in a solid container, a solid box, safe, which does not include, they struck it down, it does not include the glove compartment, stuff like that, and it has to be locked. So
That's if it's not within your immediate control, right?
If it's unattended.
Unattended.
The vehicle needs to, if the vehicle is unattended, this says that only the vehicle is locked, but with the new added law, if you're gonna leave the gun in your vehicle, which is not recommended, right? But sometimes you have to because you're gonna go pick up little Billy or whatever the case may be. Now it has to be in a safe, hard case, and that has to be locked in addition to the vehicle. So that's part of the new car storage law.
Yeah, and a note on car storage. Most bad guys get their guns from stealing them, and the easiest place to steal guns from tends to be out of vehicles.
Yeah.
You should not be leaving your gun in your vehicle if you do not need to leave it in your vehicle. And if you need to leave it in your vehicle, you should be securing your gun. It's not because it's the law, it's because that's part of being a responsible gun owner.
Correct.
And you're not responsible for the actions of other people, but when you make it that easy for somebody, you have a responsibility to secure that firearm in a reasonable way. And if you're not doing that, then you're not meeting your responsibilities that go along with your rights.
Correct. Yeah, for sure. We already talked about this. That's kind of redundant for the governing bodies and the board of the college of the universities.
Essentially, that is basically now enforced whether or not the university wants it, right? Before, the university could decide if they wanted to ban concealed carry, and now it is just banned.
It's just banned.
Yeah.
So this is kind of going away, and it's now up to the state, no longer up to them. This is still in place. If you go into any building, I say any area because this includes just areas, not just buildings. But if you go into any facility, any area that has security personnel and electronic weapon screening devices permanently placed at each entrance to the building, notice that it says entrance, it doesn't say exits. Continuing, it says security personnel electronically screen each person who enters the building to determine whether the person is carrying a weapon of any kind, and security personnel requires each person who is carrying a weapon of any kind to leave the weapon in possession of security personnel while the person is in the building. This is one that most people don't fight. Guilty is charged as well. So it's not just you guys. Sometimes we're dummies too. And this says and. So when you go to a place and it has security and metal detectors, and a wand is a metal detector, has to be both. But they also have to require you to leave the gun with them while you're in the building. They can't, technically, according to the law, they can't just say, oh, you got to shoot, you got to leave. They have to provide a space for you to store that firearm while you're in the building. Nothing in this part 2 shall be construed to limit, restrict, or prohibit in any manner the existing rights of private property owners, private tenants, private employers, or private business entities. Private property rights are still more important than your gun rights,
except if you're a school
except if you're a school.
or
In the
daycare
sense,
center
if
or
you
educational facility of any kind.
if you go to a restaurant and they ask you to leave for any reason, you got to leave for any reason. That includes your guns. So signs at a restaurant doesn't mean anything. If you notice, all of the changes of where you can and cannot carry is government specific. So private entities is still private stuff.
So let's go ahead and just draw a distinction. Just because a building is open to the public does not mean it is a public building. So a shopping mall is not a public building, it is a private building. A public building would be a library, the DMV, courthouse,
Yeah.
police station, museum, places owned, operated, leased by the public, by a public entity, a local, city, town, state government.
Yeah.
So bars are not public buildings. Malls, movie theaters are not public buildings. They
Correct.
are private buildings.
Yeah, that didn't change, right? If you notice, nothing on here says you cannot carry into places where they serve alcohol. It doesn't say. A lot of people think that hospitals are government ran. I know that's what the government wants you to, but no,
There are hospitals that are government run. The state
sure,
hospital in Pueblo is a government run hospital, but
sure,
most of them are not.
Logan, yeah. Right, if you go to Lutheran, or if you go to, it's like a great majority of hospitals are privately ran hospitals. So that's it. That's where you cannot carry. We read the new law, and then we read this one. You combine two of them, and that's where you cannot carry. And again, for a lot of you guys, you're like, oh, I already thought that's where it was anyway. So, ta-da. There you go.
All right, let's talk about circumstances in which you do not need a permit to carry a gun.
Sweet. Let's go to first. Let's go to 1812, 105, and then I'll reinforce it with 204. This is protected in the law 3 times. We read one of them. What is limited with the government. But I also want to talk about this, right? So unlawfully carrying a concealed weapon, it shall not be an offense if the defendant was. I like how they call you a defendant before you're even charged with anything. A person is his or her own dwelling or place of business. Yeah, they included you ladies this time. Yay. A person in his or her own dwelling or place of business or on property owned or under his or her control at the time of the act of carrying, or a person in a private automobile, another private means of conveyance, who carries a weapon for lawful protection of such persons or others, person or property while traveling, or a person who, at the time of carrying a weapon, held a valid written permit. So we were going to talk about where you don't need a permit. So your home, your place of business, Obviously, if your boss lets you carry a gun, then ta-da. But this is more specific to his or her own dwelling or place of business, yours. Nothing down. If you look down here, it starts to talk about the whole protection of property. In other sections, it talks about that. So this is one of the ones where just because it says it so here on the law, I just don't want you to go to jail for protecting property in your car. But you do not need a permit when you're in a private automobile, private means of conveyance. Read the sections.
And in this section, in the citations that Edgar is scrolling on here, are your case law that defines concealed. And case like concealed is not well defined under Colorado statutes, but case law essentially dictates that concealed means that the firearm was not readily discernible as a firearm, and there was an intent to conceal the gun. So again, that's not even that great of a definition,
Yeah.
but that's what it is in Colorado.
Placed out of sight as to not be discernible or apparent by ordinary observation about the person. So I encourage you guys to read all this stuff. This is stuff that goes to the appellate courts or goes to the Supreme Court. This is not going to be low level stuff. Like if it's a one off, like it doesn't show up here. The other one, we already read it. The limitations. This is a double down on you carrying in your vehicle without a permit. Ta-da, right here. So you can have a handgun in your possession, and it shall not be considered concealed when you're in a private automobile, some other private means of conveyance, and carries a handgun for legal use, including self-defense, or if you're legally engaged in hunting activities within the state of Colorado. And this is when people ask, but can I do the what, and then the thing, and then the stuff, and they're like, just read the law. One of the things that I encourage people to do is just read the law and don't overcomplicate it. I know those of you guys that like to overplan your life, overcomplicate the shit out of the laws. Like it's super complicated, and you're what ifing this way too fucking much. Don't just simplify it, right? It doesn't say anything about where the magazine has to go. So guess where the magazine could go? It could go where the fuck you want it to go. It doesn't say anything about chambered or not chambered. So guess what you could do? Whatever you want. Because if it was going to restrict you from doing it, guess what it would do? It would have the restriction there. So it's not restricting you from doing it. Just read the law and don't overcomplicate it. I think that helps a lot of humans when they stop overcomplicating it. But I get it. Some of you guys like to plan every second of your day and your every meal, and like you guys like to think about every fucking thing before it even happens. Just read the law, and life would be a lot easier for you. I promise you.
So on that note, handguns are covered under that law. Rifles and shotguns are
Handguns.
not. And the definition of a handgun under Colorado law is a firearm with a barrel of less than 12 inches. To answer you nutcases out there who want to carry a 10.5-inch AR pistol loaded under your seat, technically that is lawful. If we look at the definition of handgun, 12 inches, 10.5 is less than 12. There you go.
So E5, this is 1812-201. I'm sorry, 1812-101. Handgun means a pistol, revolver, or other firearm of any description, loaded or unloaded, from which any shot, bullet, or other missile can be discharged, the length of the barrel of which, not including any revolving, detachable, or magazine breech, does not exceed 12 inches. Ta-da!
So a missile launcher of less than 12 inches is a handgun.
Oh, that'd be dope. That'd be so dope.
All right. So to summarize, you can carry in your car or personal private means of conveyance. You can carry in your business, and you can carry on your real personal property.
Yep.
And you do not need a permit. Can we define oh crap, it just left my brain. We'll skip it. We'll come back if it comes back. All right.
So one thing that I like to talk about is renewals really quick. We kind of already talked about that, but just really quick, you remember the requirements are different now. You now need to take the refresher course. The certificate is valid for 1 year.
That's new.
That's new. So the certificate is valid for 1 year. It's no longer valid for 10 years. So you have to take your refresher course no sooner than 1 year before you need to renew. Because if you do it sooner, then obviously your certificate wouldn't be valid. And they want you to renew within 120 days prior to the expiration. So they want you to wait 4 months ish before it expires. They don't want you to start the process too soon, too early. And then you have to pay the fees. The fees are $152 at the high end, $152.50 at the high end. $100 is the max for the county. $52.50 is for the CBI. That's what it is right now. It can change at any moment if they deem necessary.
That's for new applications.
This is for new applications. For renewals, it's $63. So the payment there is up to $50 for the county, and then $13 for the CBI. So the renewal fee shall not exceed $50, and then currently $13 for the CBI. So again, you have to take a refresher course when you go renew here on out.
There is also a grace period if you do not renew by your renewal date. There's a 6-month grace period, but you do need to recognize that if you're in that grace period, you do not have a valid concealed carry permit.
Correct.
And if you go beyond the grace period, then your application becomes a new application, not renewal, in which case you would need to take another one of the 8-hour courses.
Correct. What other parts should we remember? Read all this stuff where we're trying to avoid all of the stuff. Reciprocity. Here's where you find reciprocity. You're going to go to CBI reciprocity. You guys are testing me on my spelling. So everything on the left right here is a yes. Everything on the right is a no. This can change at any moment. So please, Colorado works off of street rules when it comes to this. If you're a thug, you know what I'm talking about.
Real recognize real.
Real recognize real. And the way and the way the law is written is that reciprocity is established that with any state that recognizes the validity of permits issued by Colorado. So if they acknowledge our permit, Colorado automatically acknowledges their permit. Here's one thing that I do say about reciprocity. A lot of people have non-resident permit. Take the class, get your extra permits, do all that shit. But most states have this in their requirements. You have to be a resident of the state that issued the permit. So if you're traveling into Colorado and you have an Arizona non-resident permit, but you live in Nevada, it's not valid. We don't have you don't have reciprocity there. You can't do that because you have to be a resident of the state that issued the permit. So be mindful about that stuff. A lot of states have that. So it's kind of the little asterisk there with the reciprocity. Like in most states, you have to be a resident of the state that issued the permit. Non-resident permits don't help in a lot of states.
So for those of you who are moving to Colorado and still have a concealed carry permit from the state you just left, did it say there that it's valid for 90 days? Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you've got 3 months, which is in El Paso County, is not going to be enough time for you to get your concealed carry permit. So, yeah, this is one of the many issues with why permits are stupid in the first place. But you have 90 days to get your new permit if you want to maintain a continuous permit. Your Colorado permit automatically becomes invalid as soon as you move out of the state. So if you are leaving the state, then you no longer have a valid Colorado concealed carry permit.
Leaving to move.
Leaving to move. If you are visiting another state, if you maintain a Colorado address, you can use your permit in those states listed there. Obviously, and this shouldn't need to be said, but based on questions you guys ask in the classroom, I guess it does need to be said.
Yeah.
You have to follow the state laws for the state you're in when you are carrying in that state. For instance, in Texas, it is unlawful to carry in a bar. Go read the Texas laws, but it's unlawful to carry in a bar in Texas, but it's lawful in Colorado. That doesn't mean you have Colorado rules in Texas.
Also, 27 states or 28 states have constitutional carry now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's 27, 28. I forget what the exact number is. Most of those states, not all of them, but most of the states are for residents only. So you might say, oh, I'm going to go to this state. I don't need a permit there. Like, that's cool. But a lot of them have residency restrictions. You have to be a resident of that state in order for you to have constitutional carry. So be mindful.
Yeah, Wyoming is one of those states, and Arizona is not one of those
Right.
states.
Yeah. Also, some of those constitutional carries is if you have the permit, you get to go to more places. If you don't have the permit, you're restricted on where you can go. There's a lot of instructors, and I have to say this because it bugs me. It's really more of a
Rant.
OCD thing. They talk about like you carry in 39 states, and like if we count them, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34. So it is 34 states that you can. Did I count that right?
33 or 34. But the point,
That
honestly,
fucking
I was with
ruined my
you until
day.
you got to Virginia, and then
Yeah,
I lost it.
you fucking lost it. Go back and replay that
I
shit.
need more Sesame Street time where we're watching the little
Yeah,
bouncing ball.
if you guys tell me exactly what's on here right now, and it could have changed when you take the class, we understand that. But read that and tell me how many it is here. And I don't know what Isaac will do, but I can only account for me. I will add you to our list so we can do little giveaways and shit like that. Every once in a while, I give away a box of ammo and shit like that. Nothing major, nothing big. I'm not saying exactly what you would win, but if you tell me exactly how many are here, and I'll go back and count them, and if it's the exact number, I'll enter you. That's the like, yeah, you watch the video, tell
That's
me
the Easter
this
egg.
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the Easter egg right there, and I'll enter you into that giveaway. Again, it could just be a bullshit magazine or 50 rounds of ammo or something low level, but just fun, right? Like it's fun to win shit. It's sad to lose stuff.
Yeah, no kidding. Especially our rights.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's talk real quick about maintaining a permit, moving, address change, losing your permit.
cool. Maintenance and permit is we kind of skim through it within 30 days. Remember, 30 days of the change of address. Change of address doesn't say change of county, it just change of address specified on his or her permit or within 3 business days of his or her permit is being lost, stolen, or destroyed. The permittee shall notify the issuing sheriff. Again, read this. The issuing sheriff of the change of address, permit loss, theft, destruction. Failure to notify the sheriff is a class. It used to be class 1 petty offense, but we don't call them class 1 petty offenses anymore. It's a civil infraction. It's a civil infraction, which is the same as that $50 stuff that we talked about earlier. If the permit is lost, stolen, or destroyed, then you would have to pay $15 fee. They can charge you $15 to do that. If it's just a simple address change, they don't charge you for that. The next one you wanted to read was that's it, right? Like that's kind of the highlight. Oh, when you renew, if you changed, if you moved, I'm sorry, if you changed your address, you would have to renew if there's a new sheriff, right? You move from Denver to Jefferson County. When it's time to renew, you renew with the new sheriff. You may get a sheriff who says, you know what, let's just switch you over now. Fuck it, let's just do it right now. Like you do what you want with that information if you want to do it or not, but you update the information with the issuing sheriff. Once it's time to renew, you do it with the new sheriff.
All right, we talked about storage laws for the car, storage laws in your home, or anywhere else besides your car. Storage laws essentially require you to secure your firearms from unauthorized or unlawful access. So the shorthand version of this is anyone under the age of 18 is not allowed to have unsupervised access to a firearm, and anyone under court order not allowed to handle firearms. Convicted felons, people on pretrial or pre-adjudication rules, restraining orders, etc. People who are not allowed to touch firearms. If you leave a firearm with that person, you are in violation of the law.
Yeah.
Definition of safe storage or storage, lawful storage, secure storage is a safe, a lockbox, a lock on the gun, or any other reasonable means of securing the firearm.
Yeah. So to clarify on the felon stuff, not all convicted felons are prohibited from possessing firearms. So understand where you stand on that. If you're a prohibited felon, though, there's a lot of you guys that did some shanky shit when you were young, and as part of your conviction was don't be around guns anymore. This would apply to you, right? So your wife, your boyfriend, your whoever needs to keep them away from you. And say this so you don't go back to prison. This doesn't mean that you can't defend yourself. Let's just say some shit happened and you know how to break into the safe because you've been to fucking prison, and then you fucking you rip that bitch open and you use it. In many cases, because it was in self-defense to defend family members or whatever, that's the only reason you broke one law in prevention of another. But there are some felons that are able to be around guns, and this would not apply to you. So it's that unauthorized person. You can look. You can go to Harbor Freight. Freight. Is it Freight? And then look at locked.
Oh, you gotta
Block that shit. Locked box, whatever. So if you just go to locked box, it could seriously be some shit like that, and then ta-da, that locks. That would meet the definition. There's a lot of tool sets, a lot of drawers that have the locking mechanism, tool organization and shit like that. That would meet the requirements for all of that stuff.
So Edgar's pointing out how you can meet this law. Again, your responsibility is to secure that firearm. If you've got a 14-year-old who knows how to pick locks, then you
have a parenting issue.
You have a parenting issue, but it is your responsibility to secure that firearm from that possibly untrustworthy.
So your 14-year-old could fucking meet one of these.
Like there's a line here between saying like what is your responsibility and what are you really not responsible for. The law says any reasonable means of securing the firearm.
Yeah.
You have to think about whether you would want to be explaining to the cops why your kid got access to a gun or not. You want to have to think about explaining to one of your kid's friends why one of them is dead because they got access to a firearm because you tried to meet the minimum definition of the law. This is where laws don't make sense because this is how we end up with cheap locks that are included in every firearm purchase, where the people who get these things who don't know any better are now securing their gun with something that doesn't work.
Yeah.
But they think because it was included, then that must be enough.
Correct.
So we're explaining these laws to you because it's our responsibility in the class, but ultimately you are responsible for your actions.
Correct.
And that includes allowing your child to have access to guns with your permission. You are the child's parent. Your job is to raise that child. If your 8-year-old is trustworthy to go squirrel hunting with you, as opposed to your 19-year-old who can't handle, access to a car or access to a gun, your job as the parent is to make those decisions.
Yeah. Yeah. Big
Does
fucking
anybody
difference.
squirrel hunt anymore?
Yeah.
Is that a thing in Colorado? Do people do that?
It's a thing. All the rednecks just got like, what?
Squirrel hunting. Squirrel's tasty.
Squirrels. I like skunks. I can't do a good redneck accent. I can do a good Mexican accent.
I don't know. It's kind of weak.
Hijo de tu puta madre. Arriba la América, cabrones. So the car storage, it's unattended in a four-sided container. We kind of skimmed over that a little bit. It's not in here just yet, but it will be a part of it. What other subjects shall we cover? Do you want to move on to self-defense or not?
Yeah, let's go ahead and jump into self-defense.
So self-defense, you're going to go again to that LexisNexis. I'm going to put it back up there. You're going to go to 18, and this is going to be under section 1. Then you're going to go to part 7. Under 7, you're going to go to 704. I encourage you guys to read that entire section, right? Like it's choices of evil, execution of public duty, use of physical force in special relationships. It's not that kind of special relationships. It's not what is that, love on the down or spectrum, spectrum love, whatever that show is. So
You know
yeah.
more about that stuff than I do.
Is it down with love? Is that what it is? Or I think it's love on the spectrum though. That's what I think about when it says special relationships. 181704. Some of you guys are like, I'm not going to this fucker's class. And I think for both of us, you probably made the right choice.
Yeah.
Because we probably don't need you as a student if like you're like super offended over fun, that type of stuff.
It's amazing to me that you'd be interested in learning about how to shoot and kill somebody, but you would let words bother you.
Yeah, right. And here's the thing. This is what always like is hilarious. I had my it has nothing to do with the fucking video, but fuck it. We're off the rails now.
Rant.
Fucking market rent, another rent. Bro. My youngest daughter, she had to be brought to the class, and this is a whole class of me saying the word that I'm not gonna say here because this is gonna be on YouTube. So I've been saying the whole word the whole fucking time, and then here walks in bro, and then people are like, "What?" And I call her that. Like, oh, there goes my little, and then I use the word again. This is YouTube, and this video I don't want to be taken down. Other videos I don't give a fuck about. This is a video we don't need that. So people are, I can't believe you said that. I was like, well, like it is what it is. Like you think that about my daughter, which is fucked up about you. I don't think that about my daughter. I just like to have fun with my daughter. She calls me fat and bald and all that shit. So like a lot of people who judge us like that have zero fucking clue of how we live our lives. And you just little bitch. End of rant.
End of rant. Rant off.
Go.
All right. So, deadly force. First of all, definition of deadly force is a level of force that is likely to cause death, which includes firearms, knives, and other impact weapons. And you can find that in not only in the case law, but in some of the statutes as well.
Is it in the case law?
There are, I believe there are a few cases defining threat of deadly force. And it's not really relevant except to say that more than guns can be deadly force, but guns are defined as deadly force.
Okay, cool. Because this says definitions, and then like I never really looked for it. But yeah, a lot of people think that deadly physical force, like when we're talking about self-defense, like there's actually nothing in here that's gun specific. Like there's nothing that says you can shoot the guy. It doesn't say. It says deadly physical force, which is it should be defined down here at the bottom. But I think in the interest of time, I may float a bit later.
So
or not, but
deadly force, and then force that's likely to cause great bodily harm or serious bodily injury, which includes losing body parts or losing the function of a body part. So this is high level stuff, and in our classes we talk about why we don't really care about what these words actually mean. Your lawyer should care, and your legal team should absolutely understand this stuff, but your job is to defend yourself in a reasonable way. And trying to check off boxes when you are getting stabbed in the neck is a stupid way to think about self-defense.
Correct.
But it is important when you are defending yourself to understand that if you use a firearm to defend yourself, you are automatically going to be evaluated under this law. And if you use any other level of force that is likely to cause death or great bodily injury, you are going to be evaluated under this law.
Correct. Yeah. Look for the definition. I think it's still important for you guys to know it. We have a law class, and we talk about the direct aftermath, and one of the ways that I describe our law class is I hate to say it, but it's about as worthless as it's come. Not because the information is bad. The information is great. especially if you take it with Isaac. I think that's one point where Isaac does better than I do. And I don't mean that facetiously in any ways. Like, I genuinely mean that. I think the legal portion of it is better with Isaac. The actual fighting stuff, because I'm a thug, is better with me. If you were to like kind of categorize it, right? If you're sitting there like, which one of these two fucking doofuses do I want to go to? I think Isaac does a really good job at the legal stuff. So if you're going to do the law class, I could do it, but I think Isaac does a better job of organizing that shit. But I think the to kind of on that point is the legal class is, and we may still have it, we may not have it, we may do legal seminars. They're kind of pointless. Like I've had people to come back and then I ask them, what do you remember from the law class? And one, you're gonna not remember everything from all classes, but I think that's the class I have the most, where people are like, I have no fucking clue what we learned, and here's why. It doesn't help you. You can read the definitions, you can read all the stuff, and let's be honest. Like, knowing all of this stuff right here goes out the window when you're about to die. You're not sitting there like, oh, hey, buddy, 18.1, 704, subsection 2 says that I can. Like, no, you're just going to defend yourself. When it comes to self-defense, your priority is that self-defense. It's not gaining permission from the government to defend yourself, understanding that you will have to deal with consequences even if you're in the right. So this is why, like, we encourage you guys to read the stuff on your own and nerd out about it. But when it comes to asking the government for permission on when and where you can defend yourself, let your attorney deal with that stuff. And you should have an attorney. We have a way for you guys to get 1 month free of legal protection if you guys go to that URL right there, firearmslegal.com // GFE -activate. You can go there and you can get 1 month free. Try it out. Ask attorneys questions. Right, their app has that button. Let the attorneys deal with that shit. That's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is stay alive.
Yeah, you're a lot of instructors and lawyers will tell you need to know this stuff really well. What you need to know about this is that all of this has an extreme amount of risk in the aftermath.
Yeah.
So part of the reason why you don't want to end up defending yourself is because the legal aftermath is very unpredictable.
Yeah.
And I don't care how justified you think you are, that is not how this stuff works. So understanding the risk is one of the reasons why you should know this stuff. But using this to define how you're going to defend yourself is not realistic, and it's not advisable.
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. It's we've had 20 students who've had to use their gun in self-defense, and if you ask any one of those 20 which law did they reference when they were defending themselves, I promise you they didn't reference any law. It was self-defense. It's either I acted or I died. So just keep that in mind.
All right, so let's talk about the difference between defense of a person and defense against an intruder.
Yeah, so when we talk about an intruder, and Supreme Court judge said that you should not call this the make my day law. I think that's really more for attorneys and stuff like that. But that's what people commonly know. The name of the law is this right here: use of deadly physical force against an intruder within your home. And I'm going to read the annotation. I think the annotation says it a little bit better than the law itself. We could still cover it if we want, but this right here is kind of one of the ones. A defendant must establish by preponderance of the evidence that he or she had reasonable belief that the intruder was committing or intended to commit a crime against a person or property in addition to the uninvited entry. This inquiry focuses on the reasonable belief of the occupant, not the actual conduct of the intruder. So one word that I like to define is by preponderance of the evidence. If we do a quick little Google, I forget that I can just fucking search Google for that, like right there. This is from Alabama Judicial, is an amount of evidence that is enough to persuade you. If you go to Cornell, a preponderance of the evidence is providing or proposition by the preponderance of the evidence required, demonstrating that the proposition is more likely true than not true.
So this is not your beyond a reasonable doubt.
Correct.
This is, 50-50. Which side would you land on based on the way it was described?
Yeah. So keep that in mind when you're in your home. This I think this describes it the best. We can read the law, and the only added thing would be like, what's an intruder is against any person when that person has made an unlawful entry. It doesn't say break and enter, it just says an unlawful entry. And then the other word that it says is uninvited entry. So it talks about uninvited and unlawful entry. One thing you will find in the annotations and in case laws is that this does not apply to anybody whom you've had a personal relationship with. When we talk about personal relationships, the rule of thumb is anybody who you have invited over your house, had break bread with. Me as a parent, the way I qualify this is, would I allow you to be around my kids type stuff? I'm pretty particular about that shit. So I think most parents are, right? Is you're pretty careful about who your kids are around to a certain degree, and then you send them to public school to be around. So whatever that means, you've had a personal, but this personal relationship includes you bumped uglies overnight, right? Like you met somebody on Tinder and they came over and you guys bumped uglies. If you read the law, that's included in that special relationship stuff. So
So here's something that you need to understand about this. This is how you're going to argue your act of self-defense after the fact.
yeah,
Just because you have a special relationship with somebody does not mean you cannot defend yourself against that person. What we're saying here is that it would not be defined, your use of force would not be evaluated under 181704.5. It would be evaluated under 181704. And all personal relationships complicate self-defense. That's always true.
correct.
But it's important to understand that you don't determine how you're going to defend yourself based on where what the law says about where it's happening. Your goal is to use every advantage you can to win the fight that you must have. If you don't need to have this fight, you should not be sitting here being like, well, if it's home defense, I can do whatever I want. That's a good way to get yourself killed over some stupid stuff. So your lawyer, hopefully, if this takes place inside your home, will be able to clearly define your use of force as meeting these requirements. And if it does meet these requirements, you have an immunity defense, which prevents prosecution. But that's not as simple as it sounds. Come back to our legal class and we'll go into more detail about that. But essentially, what we're saying here is best case scenario, legally speaking, this happens within your dwelling and meeting these criteria. That's the best legal outcome you're going to get, or legal argument you're going to get for self-defense. The provisions here are that you must be an occupant, a lawful occupant of the dwelling, that there is unlawful or uninvited entry, that there is an additional crime being committed against people or property, or reasonable belief of an additional crime, and that there is a reasonable belief of a threat to any of the occupants of that dwelling. And it says right there under part 2, no matter how slight, against any occupant. So
Correct.
if those things are met, then the case will be evaluated under this 181704.5, or what people call castle law.
Yeah, castle law, castle doctrine really is the best way to kind of refer this to. I want to see if they have a specific definition for dwelling. Just really quick while we move before we move along.
Yeah, generally, like our guideline, our rule of thumb for dwelling is a place where you shit, shower, shave, where you where you conduct domestic activities.
So it correct. Yeah, it doesn't include your car. A lot of people say, but I live in my car. It's like, yeah, but do you really? Like, if you really think about it, you sleep in your car, you live everywhere else, right? You eat somewhere else, you cook somewhere else, you shower somewhere else.
And if
Um,
you did live in your car, I mean, meaning that's where you sleep, you're homeless, you might use the gym for a shower or whatever.
correct.
It's up to your lawyer to argue and convince a prosecutor that you live in your car.
Right.
Um, it is not up to you in the moment when you're trying to defend yourself to say, well, like, come in the car, we'll fight because then I have castle law. Again, this is not how we choose to fight. This is how we argue this after the fact.
Correct. Yeah, there's no definition here. There will be definitions of a dwelling if you look them up in like the real estate codes and all that stuff. That's where the definition of that will be. In the interest of time, we're just going to move it along. I just want to see if there was anything that was specified in the rules. The reason the annotations are important is because if you are being tried, this is what the juries are going to look at. The juries get a packet and the judge gives them rules, and a lot of these rules are based off of this stuff right here. So um be understanding of that. This is why we talk about the annotations a lot. It clarifies a lot of that stuff, and that is what the jury uses as a kind of a base. Anything else on this stuff? I don't think so, huh? Oh,
Let's
defense
talk
of a
about
property.
robbery. Yeah.
Yeah. So the property stuff, use of physical force in defense of property. We talked about the car stuff earlier. There was a section that said you can defend property. No, you can't. This kind of trumps that, and it's been tried in court many, many times. A person is justified in using reasonable and appropriate physical force upon another person when and to the extent that he reasonably believes it is necessary to prevent what he reasonably believes to be an attempt by another person to commit theft, criminal mischief, criminal tampering involving property, but he may use deadly physical force under the circumstances only in defense of himself or another, as described in section 18.1.704. So you cannot defend property with deadly physical force unless it meets the criteria in 18.1.704.
So where people get caught up in this is they believe that the law is telling them that they cannot defend their property. You can defend your property. Are you willing to get into a life and death fight over your property? I can't determine your values for you. Edgar can't determine your values for you, but you better understand the risks involved. If you are defending property with physical force and the other person escalates it to the point where you are defending your life, then we just reference back to defense, use of deadly force in defense of a person. And the world is a crazy place, and it's very possible that you could be minding your own business and decide to push somebody off of some property because they're acting belligerent, and then all of a sudden they pull out a gun. Like, that kind of stuff can happen. But what we're advising you is, like, don't look for problems where there don't need to be problems. Don't put yourself in a situation where you're having to defend your life and your freedom over something that you would generally not be okay with going to jail for.
Correct. You said you wanted to talk about robbery.
Yeah, just because people bring this up, use of deadly force is included in circumstances uh, of robbery when there is a threat to a person. So
Yeah.
a
So robbery and
robbery.
theft are two different things.
Mhm.
And this is, I think people conflate that a lot. And if you notice, there's 18 and 8, Title 18, there's two sections under Article 4. So 18.4, there's Part 3 and Part 4, two distinct ones covering what theft and robbery is. Robbery, just plain old robbery. This is not aggravated robbery. A person who knowingly takes anything of value from a person or presence of another or presence of another by use of force, threats, or intimidation commits robbery. So now if we go to aggravated robbery, this is when you start getting a little spicier, right? Because now the person's armed with a deadly weapon, all of that shit. So like there's a difference. If we look at theft, just very quickly, just theft itself is nothing. is blank. A person commits theft when he knowingly obtains, retains, or exercises control over anything of value of another without authorization, or by threat or deception, receives loans, money. So like it includes, like, theft is not a stick 'em up type stuff. Robbery and burglary are more of a stick 'em up. Burglary, Unless I'm wrong, it's been a while since I read it. Burglary itself is stick 'em ups in places. I got a camera. Stick 'em up in places. So like a place of business or a home, that would be the burglary. Yeah, premises, separate buildings, that type of shit. So that's where the burglary would come. For a lot of you guys, you're like, but it's all theft. Yeah, it is, but not. Remember, we're not the government, and this is what it means by this. Which one did you want me to go to?
Oh, that was it. I was just pointing out that there are differences. There are circumstances where the motivation of the bad guy could be to steal, but as a part of their act, they are threatening physical force or great, well, not great physical force, but physical force that is likely to result in death, serious bodily injury. So,
He knowingly
um,
wounds, strikes the person, robber, and yeah, all that.
yeah.
Yep.
Again, don't develop your self-defense plan around what this stuff says. You're defending life, your life or the life of somebody you care about. If you're at 7-Eleven and the bad guy is pointing a gun at the clerk and you decide that the clerk's life is worth your life and you decide to get involved, then you're making a decision to protect life in that situation. But if the bad guy has run out of the store with the gun in his hand and his bag full of money and he's running around the back of the building, there is no continuous threat at that point to anybody. And if you go chase him down and try to say, well, he robbed the store, he's not immediately threatening anybody in that moment as he's running away.
Yeah. I didn't realize this was a crime, so I'm gonna have to read this.
Oh, you gotta go
And
watch Cable Guy again.
I can't watch cable anymore because I should make a phone call really quick.
You mean free cable?
Yeah. Any other section that you think we should go over? Again, 18.1, 704, 18.1, 704.5. Title 18 is going to have a great majority of the stuff that you're looking for. If you go to Article 12, that's the gun stuff. If you go to 1, this is mostly all of the Part 7. I'm sorry, this is the self-defense stuff. 18, 18.4 and 18.3, that starts to talk about what all of this means: homicides, assaults, kidnapping, unlawful sexual behavior. So encourage you guys to read it. This talks about oh no, not this one. That was a weird one. It's not the one I wanted.
Offenses against property, number 4.
Offense against property. No, there was one that, I mean, this is a good one. You guys should read that one as well. But the other one that I wanted to read was let me find it really quick. 18.1, 704.
Well, while he's looking at that, I'm just gonna point out that some of this stuff is relatively simple to understand,
Yeah.
but applying it is very difficult.
Yeah.
Applying it as and defending yourself in court is very, very difficult. It's very important that you understand that any act of self-defense is potentially unlawful, and you should not be doing it unless you have to.
Yeah. I thought it was this one. 18.3. I think I was in a different one. 18.3. Obviously, I was in a different one. A person commits the crime of menacing if, by any threat or physical action, he or she knowingly places or attempts to place another person in fear of imminent serious bodily injury. Menacing is a Class 1 misdemeanor, but it is a Class 5 felony if committed by the use of a firearm, knife, or a bludgeon, or a simulated firearm, knife, or bludgeon. So be careful when you want to go save your car with the gun in your hand, because you might be the one that's menacing. We don't have in the state of Colorado, we don't have a brandishing law. Last I checked, we didn't have a brandishing law. Shit changes so fucking quick. Ace?
Brandish.
Brandish. We don't have a brandishing for this is whether peace officer. See, this is all peace officer stuff. There's no definition of This is peace officer again, peace officer again. It's all the same one going back to the murder in the first degree, brandishing a gun. There's no definition for what brandishing actually is. This is all attached to the other stuff. In Colorado, we don't have a definition for brandishing because we don't have a brandishing law per se. If you read, I encourage you guys to do this. This is talking about first degree murder. This is the annotations and all that stuff. There's no actual brandishing law, so we're really talking about 18.3. That was my mistake. I was in 18.1. In 18.3, what was it? What the fuck was it?
Part 2. 18.3 part 2.
I think you're right. Oh yeah, assault, menacing. 206. Be mindful. That's what the charge is. So if you go out and try and defend your car because you feel like your car is worth your life, one, your pecker's small, right? Obviously, but you could be the one that's being charged with this.
Yeah, any time you threaten to use a firearm against another person, that's a felony. Now you can justify that felony, or you can justify that otherwise felonious action with your argument for self-defense. But if you lose that argument, you have committed a felony. So that's where we get to. If I pull my gun but don't use it, what happens? Felony charges on the table. So
yeah. I think that's really it for this video, right? I mean, kind of
one more thing to add: defending against animals.
That's a no. You here's what I always recommend is always go look for the. I read it once, but I don't care about it enough to really look at it. There's a section in here that talks about animal cruelty. And I think it's still in the criminal code. Read that. It's important for you guys to read it. Now you're not just talking about defending your dog.
I'm talking about you defending yourself
against
an animal.
Yeah. So the answer is yeah. So that one you could do.
Yeah, under the same circumstances you defend yourself against a person. And the tricky thing is defining what the animal's intent was. You get the case where the dog is running at you and you think it's going to attack, and then the owner comes up later and says that dog has never attacked anybody. I know they act aggressive, but they never would attack anybody. When you get arguing animals' intent, that can complicate things. But you are privileged to use deadly force against animals to protect people.
Yeah. If you guys read the section again, it's relatively easy to go look it up. I just did a basic search defense of animals, and there's really nothing in here that would talk about it. And in fact, you'll find a lot of times not allowing you to shoot animals, probably more than you do about humans. But there's nothing in here that says you can protect your dog. I go deep on dog owners in the class to the point where some of them cry.
Yeah, you can't protect your animal you can't protect the family dog from a bad guy attacking. You can't use, I'm going to take this back. You can't use deadly force to protect the family dog from an attacker.
Outside of the house.
Outside of the house. And think of it this way. The dog does not have any human rights. Let's just put it right there. Like, the dog is not a person, and the law is about protecting people. Now, I know that there are ranch laws that allow for the protection of livestock from other animals, and we're not talking about that. We're talking about defending the family dog from a bad guy or bad girl or bad they.
And a lot of people would wonder why we spend so much time talking about this. Like, I'm Mexican. I'm not part of your guys' culture, but like I do, like, white people are fucking, you guys love your dogs. Like you guys do the.
I've got receipts.
Yeah, you got receipts. My dog started peeing blood, and it was like, it's time. It affected me for sure. It's probably weird that it affected me, but.
Well, you've become acclimated to our culture.
I've become, for sure. I had to, or else I was going to be, as an invader to your nation. I had to, but and I mean, outside of the funny, a lot of humans believe that dogs are humans, and you're sitting there, but they are, but they're not. I mean, we can rationalize that as much as you think you can, but it's not a dog, right? Like facts are not your feelings are not like they don't do the things, right? Facts and your feelings. You can feel whatever you want about your dog. The law doesn't give two shits about your dog. And that's I think that's ultimately the thing is the law doesn't give a shit about how you feel about your dog because it's just the dog. That was a Debbie Downer moment.
We have anywhere up to go from here? The deadly force laws, we have specifics within Colorado law, but important thing to know, the deadly force law essentially works the same everywhere in the country.
Yeah,
There are some small differences, but they're not something to really get worked up about. A lot of people will ask the question: is Colorado a stand your ground state? Not technically. Also, we're not a duty to retreat state.
correct.
Stand your ground means a lot of things to a lot of people, but what matters is what it means under the law. And the
Correct.
law does not translate into what people think that stand your ground law actually
Correct.
means. So just leave the stand your ground out of your vocabulary when it comes to this. Let your lawyer worry about that.
Correct.
Leave duty to retreat out of your definitions of
Correct.
lawful self-defense. Let your lawyer worry about that. Under Colorado law, you do not have a duty to retreat. But even in a duty to retreat state, it does not require that you run away when it's time to defend yourself. There's a lot more to it than just that. So,
Correct.
if you want to be a lawyer, you need to learn what duty to retreat is. And if you want to be like a YouTube lawyer, then you want to learn what this means. But if you want to defend yourself, then you should engage in good training on how to defend
Correct.
yourself, which in many cases includes you running away.
Yeah,
So,
for sure. One of the things that kind of along with that, and just to here's how I feel about this whole new law shit, right? Like I think you guys already have an idea. Is I think it's bullshit. I think it's dumb. It's not gonna do anything. A lot of you guys feel forced to be in the class. That's a bad thing. It's not consistent with freedom. It's not consistent with the Second Amendment. But you guys cannot be encouraging this stuff right here, right? Like gun owners are this like me. That's my responsibility. That's your responsibility to light a fire under your friend's ass. When it comes to training, like that, this is our job in the gun community, whatever the fuck that means, to make sure that you guys are not falling under this right here. Right, like this is a real thing. Is this idea that you guys think that because you've been around two guns that you guys know everything? And this is me challenging the shit out of you guys. You being in the military does not make you a self-defense person. You being a cop doesn't make you a self-defense person. You owning 13 shotguns doesn't make you a self-defense person. You taking one of our previous classes doesn't make you a self-defense person, right? Like this is I can't say that it's a lifelong endeavor. At some point, you'd be an expert, and at some point, you've learned as much as you can learn up to that point, right? There's always updates and new shit in that, but don't have this idea that I did it one time, so I fucking know everything. No, you don't. That's one of the biggest lies in the gun community. I've been around guns, so I don't need that shit. Like that's fucking. You probably need it more than anybody else. In fact, that is what I believe. That's my theory, that if you say dumb shit like, oh, I don't need this, because you're probably the one that needs it the most.
yeah, and we shouldn't be training to satisfy other people's requirements. We shouldn't be training to meet some legal definition of trained. You shouldn't even be doing this because you want to know more than everybody else. The context of what we're talking about here is saving your life or the life of someone you care about. And that's what should be motivating you to continue to educate and train.
Yeah.
Not like, oh, I want to know everything I can about like the 9x19 cartridge and what it does, because that way I'll know more than everybody else. I want to know more about it so I know how well it works in self,
Correct.
because I'm choosing to protect myself. So
Correct.
that should be your motivation. I can't make you motivated by that. That's really up to you. But don't get to the end of the government required training and say to yourself, now I know what I need to know.
Correct. Yep. I think now, on my end, there's not a lot more than people are like, fuck, are they for reals now? Are they for real? I wonder how many people heard me say earlier, like, is that all? And then they fucking, no more playing that shit.
Well, this video so far, I think, has come in under, no, right about the same as the last video. So I
Yeah.
think, yeah.
A lot more skippable parts, though.
Yeah, probably. All right.
Which,
So,
by the way, still watch the other video if you guys want to. Like, that I'm going to leave them up, because even though some laws are no longer the same, it's a lengthier video. I'm sorry, it's about the same, but it has more of the nuances, more of the small level shit that we didn't cover in this video. This is to provide high level stuff, and this is also to provide the updated version of the laws. And the other stuff will still be there. Also helps the YouTube algorithms, but I'll note them, which one is the most updated one, so you guys know if you're watching the most updated one. And that's probably what I'll call it, is the most updated one, and then the other ones I'll label them as old or something similar. So
also, I have started a separate YouTube channel with my name on it. The reason why I started a separate YouTube channel is because I am not trustworthy with passwords, and that the consequence of that is I never have access to the Guns for Everyone
you
YouTube page.
and my wife,
Yeah,
I'm always arguing with you. Well, not really arguing with you guys, but like, did you read that message? No, I can't log in. I was like, what do you mean? Like, I gave
yeah,
you the password like a million,
yeah.
or it's the same password.
So because of that, I started my own channel. And one of my goals with this channel is to supplement the information in the classes with videos. Go into a little bit more detail, reinforce things. So if you are the type of person who is going to continue, then check out that YouTube channel. I don't care if you subscribe or not. I'm not going to tell you like, subscribe, comment. I don't care. If you want the information, it's there. You know how to find it. If you don't care, then don't bother.
And that's for Isaac's class.
Yeah.
Him and I, although we believe relatively the same shit, we're still two autonomous humans. That Mexican, and I'm telling you, that fucking ESL kicks in, and like, what the fuck? So we're still two autonomous human beings. He teaches his way, I teach my way. So if you go watch his videos, I encourage you to do it, even if you've been to my class and he says shit that we didn't cover in the class and you think it's a supplement to the class, we might not have covered it. Also, for me, that's important to say, because every class is different, right? Because we don't have like a structure. We don't follow curriculums as much, as we just answer humans. And we teach humans. We don't teach curriculums. That's the cheesy thing. But anyways, I appreciate you guys hanging out. I appreciate you guys sticking to the end. There will be a test, so a lot of the stuff that we talked about here will be on the test. So keep that in mind. We'll probably still cover it in the class, but you will have a test. I appreciate you guys hanging out. Like it, don't like it, comment. Share the video. That's one big thing that I will ask, is have you guys share this shit. The algorithms are against us, and the more people know about this stuff, the better it is. This is not just for people who've been through the class, but for anybody who wants the knowledge. So what's your YouTube page?
Just Guns for Everyone, Isaac.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the regular one, I changed it from Gun Expert. You can still follow under Gun Expert, but yeah, Guns for Everyone. I do have a personal one, but I talk about weird shit there every once in 10 years. So yeah, I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here, watching our sexy faces